I'm very pleased to present Narmin Kassam and welcome. Let's listen to you. I'd like to be intelligent conversationally. But
Good morning, and thank you, Paul, for the introduction and for allowing me to speak during your Power Monday mornings. And good morning to all of you on this cold, chilly morning. I hope you are warm and ready for me. Paul has already given an introduction to me, but just who am I? I'm also a mother of 3 adult children and a grandmother of 2 grandsons. And I am also, besides being an executive coach and an HR consultant, I'm also the founder of Wow Eats, a frozen food business that was founded in 2020 as a family business. And that is where I found this group. So I'm pleased to have this platform today. The topic today is on creating a safe space safe space with conversational intelligence. But before we go to conversational intelligence, let us explore the idea of what a safe space means. I'm going to share my slide. All right. I would like to have a little interactive session now. I hope you'll be able to give us your answers in the chat box. And Paul, I hope you can capture some of the responses. Yes. So let's try to understand what is a safe space for all of you. So let us imagine that we have been invited to a friend's birthday luncheon. This friend is called Paul. We haven't seen Paul for a long, long time, and Paul has invited us for a birthday lunch at a restaurant. So we enter the restaurant and we see a table there, and we walk over to the table. Paul is there with many friends that we have never met or we don't know. So there are a lot of new faces. All right. Immediately we are there, we are welcomed. Paul and the new friends there welcome us. What are the possible signs, gestures, body language, tones that we see and experience that make us feel welcome? Can I ask you to just put your own version in the chat box to give us an idea of what are some things that would make you feel welcome? Paul,
smile. Nancy Yogo says a smile. Faith Kadambi says handshake. Want handshakes, warm handshake. Yes, Catherine Kariba says where you are not judged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, smile in Lynette Githa LG. Noel says a smile. So people agree it should be a smile.
It should be a smile.
And okay. I believe not a fake smile, a genuine
not a fake smile, a genuine smile. Okay. Yeah. So when you
Mm-hmm.
feel welcome, when you come to that table and you feel welcome, what does it mean for you? How do you feel? Anyone want to share in the chat box?
Appreciated. It means I'm appreciated, that I belong, that I am accepted.
Belong, accepted, wonderful.
A sense of belonging, wanted. There is also wanted.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Valued.
Yes.
Christine has said valued.
Valued?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
Let's look at my slide to just give us a summary. Of course,
Yes.
it's not a limited list. We can include, I mean, all the opinions of everybody count, okay? But here are some of the gestures when you feel welcomed, yeah? Smiles, isn't it? Open arms. Somebody's waving to you. Come over. You can see the eyes are lighting up. The friends stand up to welcome you. They gesture to you through an empty seat. Introduces themselves. You can hear some laughter, soft tones, isn't it? And what does that make you feel? We had a response accepted, isn't it? Safe. We feel connected to the people. We feel protected, relaxed and comfortable. We are excited and we're able to trust this group. Okay? Now let's try and look at the converse. In situations where you are feeling excluded or you're feeling unsafe, what are some of the signs or some of the body language and gestures that you will experience that immediately puts you on guard and that immediately makes you feel unsafe? Would you like to share?
Mm-hmm.
Any responses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Waiting for responses in the chat.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel unsafe?
Frown face.
Sorry?
Frown face.
Frown face. Yeah. And somebody frowns at you, huh? Immediately
Yes.
your body recognizes that and responds. When you look at a
Staring.
frown face, you respond, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
What
kid
else?
also says staring, gossip.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. When they're talking in their own little groups, you feel that you're excluded. They're gossiping about you. They're talking about you. They're
yeah.
staring at you. They're thinking about you. Yeah. What
Cold
else?
treatment, overly touching people send you chills. When they look away or
When
rolling
they,
the eyes.
yes. They're not interested in you. And
Yeah. Then giggling, undertones, and
mm-hmm.
the likes. Yeah.
And how do you and when you are in that, when you're approaching that, how does that make you feel when you're experiencing all the frowns and the stares and everything? What goes on in you? What do you feel?
I walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yes, somebody said walk away.
Yeah, that's an action, but what goes on in you? What do
Yes.
you feel?
Feel like a stranger and anxious or anxiety. Feel
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah,
Anxiety.
tired, all that.
Anxiety. Yeah. Okay.
Mm,
So
yes. Wrong in place or wrong in a wrong place.
out
I
of
think so.
place, isn't it? Out of
Tense,
place.
unwanted, rejected.
Rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Many others. I don't belong.
I don't belong. Right.
Mm,
Good.
yes.
So let's look at this. A lot of
Yeah.
the comments that came from the group: looking away, stares, talks in their own groups, no introductions, you're left alone, no one offers you a seat. These are typical, isn't it? Typical signs and gestures that you will make you feel left out. You feel disconnected, you feel lonely, you feel isolated. You're unable to trust anyone in this group, right? Immediately your trust level is down. Correct, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how we feel, and this is how we connect with people. And it is in our daily interactions, whether it is with new people, whether it is with people that we know at the workplace, in our families. And these interactions mostly happen during conversations. because when you're talking to people, there is two parties when they're talking. There's words and body language and tones that we come across that make us feel either safe or unsafe. Okay, so what's happening in our brains when we experience this? I'm going to talk to you a bit about what our brain is and what happens in our brain. Now, this is the wisdom of the 5 brains, but the latest research says that we now have 6 brains, okay? The primary function of our brain is to protect us, okay? It is to protect us from dangers and harm. Now, in our forefather days, the dangers that we experienced or that we were threatened with were more physical. They were wild animals, bushfires, storms, and our natural instinct was to flee, fight, or run away, fight or flight, isn't it? We've heard of those responses, the fight or flight stress response, okay? In today's world, okay, our brain protects us from dangers that affect our wealth, our health, our family, and our work. And in the workplace and in our relationships, our brain protects our ideas, our opinions, our positions, and our jobs. So it is more about our ego now. The dangers that we experience today are not physical so much. Yes, the physical dangers are there, but in addition to that, we also now face the dangers that affect us in our mental state. Okay, so we've got our opinions that we want to protect, we've got our ideas that we want to protect, and when somebody contradicts that, we go into a defense mode and we sense that as a threat to us. Correct? Okay. So just to quickly tell you to give you an idea of what these parts of the brains that we're looking at right now, okay? The heart brain is the oldest brain, okay? It is the basic brain that takes care of our internal system and helps us to connect with one another. Then we have the primitive brain that is hardwired to protect us from dangers. It decides how we are going to respond or react to threats, okay? Then there is the limbic brain. The limbic brain stores our history of emotional experiences. It nurtures and it builds relationships. Then we have the neocortex, which is hardwired for language, storing information, basic thinking skills, and day-to-day navigation. And then we've got the prefrontal cortex, which is the youngest brain, known as the executive brain, which is right in front here. You know, you've got the prefrontal cortex, which is here. And this is the executive brain responsible for higher level cognitive function. This is where creativity, complex decision-making, innovation, all of that takes place, all right? And now today they're saying they have recognized our gut as a 6th brain because the gut membranes contain the same cells that our brain have, and it is an intuitive brain, which tells us something is right or wrong. So sometimes our gut tells us this is right or this is wrong, we shouldn't do this. It is our gut brain that is informing us that something is wrong here. All right, okay. Now, when we go into an unsafe mode, what happens? We get the amygdala gets into a hijack. So the amygdala in our primitive brain gets activated, and there is a release of cortisol. Cortisol is a chemical hormone. All right. So when cortisol is secreted into your brain, you now sense danger. You sense danger, you go into a fear state, you go into a stress state, you go into anxiety. And then your response is flight fight, flee, or appease. And you begin to now have this sense of distrust. You're unable to trust the situation or even to trust the people around you. And what do? You go into a protect mode. All right, okay? Now, we've heard about flight and fight. Does anyone know what a flee or an appease response is like? Can anyone give me an example of a flee or appease behavior? Sorry, yeah. Freeze. This is okay.
I've never heard of those.
So sorry, that's not flee. I've made a mistake there. It should be freeze. It's a flight, fight, freeze, or appease. So have you heard of situations, or have you been in a situation where you freeze? You will remain silent. You've been talked to, or you've been shouted at, or you've been scolded, or you're in an argument, and instead of fighting or flighting, you will freeze. You just completely remain silent and you freeze. Those are some of the responses that we face today, right? Okay.
Yes. Some people have responded, unable to do anything, freeze, ignore the situation, deer in the headlights or whatever, create a wall, something. Hey.
Create a wall, yeah. You completely, you freeze out. You want to just, you have nothing to do with it and you just keep quiet and you just back out, isn't it? So it's a form of flight, but it's not literally running away. You are in that situation at work. Maybe you are unable to run away, but you just freeze, okay? And what is appease? Anyone know what appease means?
Appease is agree to disagree for the sake. That is according to Christian. Dr. Eda says pleasing people or people pleasing.
People. Yeah. So even if you disagree with it, you'll just say yes. You have your own opinion, your own thoughts about it, but you are afraid to speak up. You are afraid because you're feeling unsafe. You're afraid to argue your point of view, to offer another point of view or to suggest something. What do? You just go ahead with them. You just appease them. You just please them and say, okay, we'll do this. If there's a suggestion that that this direction should be taken, you just go ahead with them. So you've lost yourself in it because you have appeased, right? Okay. And deep in your heart, you're feeling unsafe. You're feeling that you're not happy about it, right? Okay. Yeah. When we are in a safe mode, okay, when we have been welcomed and when we were welcomed, people were smiling at us, people, with open arms, they gestured to us. What happens in our brain at that time is there is a release of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a bonding chemical hormone, okay? And when this chemical is released in our brains, okay, our prefrontal cortex or the executive brain is activated and it allows the high level cognitive function to take place. So we're able to make better decisions. We're able to think and think beyond the regular. We're able to partner and we're able to trust the situation. We feel confident. We feel comfortable and relaxed, right? Okay. Consider now, if you are in a workplace, yeah, if you are feeling unsafe, what's the level of your performance? What's the level of your decision making? What's the level of the quality of your, the decisions that you're making, your thinking that you're making, the creativity? Because you're in a protected mode, your prefrontal cortex gets shut down. Your prefrontal cortex doesn't function then. So you're unable to activate, you're unable to work at that high level cognitive function. Okay, so what do we want here in this? We would like to be in the safe mode, isn't it? Where we're able to use our executive brain. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to conversational intelligence now, because it is through conversational intelligence that we can overcome some of these situations, that we can become aware of what happens when we have interactions and in conversations. And being aware of that enables us to take some steps that enable a safe mode versus an unsafe mode. Okay. So conversational intelligence is a framework that was founded by the late Judith Glaser. She's the one that coined this phrase, and it is a whole framework made up of tools, practices, and rituals. It gives us the power to regulate the neurochemistry in our interactions through conversations. So here's the thing. When you've got a lot of cortisol in your body, you don't feel good about things. You're stressed, you're anxious, you've got anxiety. Cortisol remains in your body for 48 hours. And if you are constantly under stress and if you're constantly anxious, the cortisol buildup in your body begins to grow until you begin to feel unwell and you're unable to function at all. You know, you've heard of people who have got high levels of stress and it begins to affect their physical state, isn't it? Because this cortisol level remains in the body for so long. When we have oxytocin, the feel-good hormone in our body, it makes us feel good. So in any conversation, when you will have a release of cortisol and you'll have a release of oxytocin and other chemical hormones. But it is that chemical cocktail that eventually makes us feel the way we are and helps us in our interactions. And what we're looking for is to see more of the oxytocin in our cocktail, in our brains, so that we are able to feel good. All right. So conversations help to keep the feel-good hormone, the oxytocin, to increase the oxytocin in our bodies so that we are able to feel good. When we are feeling good about ourselves and we are feeling in a safe space, we are able to connect, we are able to navigate, and we are able to grow with others, to build teams, partnerships, and leaders that are great. And it helps us to build trust. When we are in a trust mode, we're able to work towards mutual success. If you have somebody that you can trust, you're willing to explore, you're willing to discover, you're willing to listen to one another, to say, what is it that we can do together to build trust, whether it is in your own personal relationships, whether it is in a family environment, whether it is at the workplace. But we know that everything is, for mutual success, trust is required. Trust has a very important role and a space to play in our conversations. And conversational intelligence is learnable, okay? It's a learnable ability. It is something that if we know and if we learn, it is something that can be practiced and we can apply every day in our day-to-day conversations. So again, this is what happens in our brain. This is what happens in our brain. The idea of conversational intelligence really is for us to down-regulate some of our behaviors that release cortisol. And we talked about some of these behaviors earlier on. We've got to down-regulate the excluding, judging, limiting, withholding, knowing, dictating, criticizing, etc., etc. if we are able to, in our daily conversations, if we are able to down-regulate some of these behaviors, we will reduce the cortisol levels in ourselves and in the person that we are having a conversation with, and in the groups and in the meetings that we have conversations with, okay? The idea is to move from the left side. You can see the left side is indicated by red, which means high level of cortisol. We want to move to the right side of the brain where the prefrontal cortex sits, and which is where the oxytocin is released. And we want to have conversations where we are including people, we are appreciating, we are expanding our space, we are sharing our knowledge, we are discovering together, we are developing together, and we are celebrating together. And it's all about we. If you can see on the right side, it's about we versus the left side, which is an I. And I means you're protecting yourself. We is you are working together. Okay. So there are 3 levels of conversational intelligence. All right. And so at level one is where we are in our I state, where you are in your protect mode. All right. And in your protect mode, the level, the conversations that take place are more about transaction, information. You give and you take information. Somebody asks you a question, a direct question, you give them the answer. Or you have somebody who comes to give you instructions. You do this, do this, do this, do this. You give out the instructions. You don't want to listen to anything else. You have given the instructions and that's final, okay? Or somebody asks a question and you give them a response, okay? So the focus is on giving and taking information. It's about informing, and it's a very closed space that you're working in, all right? Level 2 conversation is about positional. It's about persuasion. And it's where you are trying to exchange power. You're trying to explore a position where you can win-win. So in a level 2 conversation, you're listening to a person to see how can you convince the other party that what they're saying is not correct, and you want to give a response for them to understand your viewpoint. It's about convincing others. It's about, this is my viewpoint. Listen to what I have to say, and let's see if we can work it out this way. So you're in a persuasive position, all right? And then when you are in level 3, that's a transformational space, you are co-creating together. So you're co-creating with the other person that you're having a conversation with. It's about discovering, it's about sharing, it's about innovating, it's about exploring perspectives and joining and transforming realities. So these are the 3 levels of conversational intelligence. So I'll show it to you in another way, okay? This is a conversational dashboard. And again, you've seen on the left side is where the cortisol levels are high. You're at level 1, you're at the protect mode, and you have got low trust, all right? And in between is the level 2, where you are, excuse me, you are trying to persuade, you're trying to convince. There's a conditional trust there, all right? There's a wait and see. Let me see what the other person is saying. Let me see how I can persuade them to come on board onto my ideas. And in the level 3, it's about partnering. It's about sharing, discovering, and it's about co-creating. High level of trust is important for this level. So if you're able to use conversational essentials, now we're talking about the essentials that you can use in your day-to-day interactions to elevate your engagement within yourself. Nancy spoke about, she recited a poem in the morning about having conversations with ourselves. And of course, we all know that we have conversations with ourselves as well. And we know that even when we are having conversations, we doubt ourselves. We don't trust ourselves. So how do we, what kind of essentials do we engage in that we can have conversations in that puts us in a safe mode? Okay. So the first one is listening to connect. Now, listening to connect is different from listening to understand. And what a lot of us understand, a lot of us apply today is listening to understand. When we say we've got good listening skills, what we're doing is we're trying to listen to whether we understand what the other party is saying. And when we're listening to the other party, we are in our brains, we are already working up a response. Either we are validating that information or we are trying to defend that information with defend that statement with our own point of view. And we are already in our brains creating a response. So if that person finishes saying something, we will immediately have a statement to make in response and in defense or in validation of that statement. That's listening to understand. When you're listening to connect, you are listening with a very neutral mindset. There is nothing going on in your brain. You are very neutral. You want to listen to what that person is saying so that what that person is sharing is something new to you. It is not for validation. It is not for defense. You want to listen to the statement to say, what is it that they are saying? All right. This is a skill that once you develop and you learn to understand, when you're able to connect with the person, you'll be able to feel that with that connection, you're able to bond, you're able to navigate your relationship, and you'll be able to grow your relationships just by listening to connect. Okay. Ask questions for which you have no answers. A lot of time we have questions that we are either leading for a reply to our belief system. So these are leading questions or they are guiding questions that you are expecting a response to validate your own belief system, your own opinions and your ideas. But if you have questions for which you have no answers, and if you ask the other party questions that you yourself don't have answers, the response they get is something that will enable you to connect with them. It's something that will enable the other party to have trust in you. All right. So of course, there's the whole framework, and this whole conversational intelligence is a big program that you have to understand what kind of questions you have to ask. But generally, if in your mind, if you have questions that you have no answers for, you're engaging, and you're engaging at level 3 conversation. Okay, right? Priming for trust. Now, we saw at the beginning when we went to that birthday luncheon, immediately we saw that that situation there was unsafe for us. We could feel the environment was not safe and what it did to us. So imagine if you are having a conversation with your child, or if you're having a conversation with your peers or with your subordinates at the workplace. And if you have similar kind of signs and gestures, what are you doing to the other person? Are they going to trust you? What message are you sending to them? Are they going to feel welcomed? Are they going to feel safe? Are they going to feel open? So you've got to be mindful of what kind of space you are creating around you when you have your conversation, so that you're able to include the other person in, and you're able to bring this other person into your conversations. So that's priming for trust. This is an interesting one, double clicking. Double clicking means that you repeat a word that you would like more explanation, or you would like to discuss further because you are not clear about it. For example, I'll give you an example about a couple that are having a conversation about disciplining their child. So the mother and the father are all they're upset about their child, and they're trying to discipline their child. And maybe the father says, that child of ours needs discipline. So double clicking in this case would mean the mother would then ask in a question tone, or just repeat discipline and pause. So when you double click on a word discipline and you pause, you are prompting the other partner or the other person to expand on that word, to give that person's view or perspective of what discipline means. And this can open up a whole new conversation, because remember, discipline to one person and discipline to another person is different. So just by double clicking on the word discipline, you open up a whole new conversation. But in that conversation, again, you need to listen to connect. You need to ask questions for which you have no answer, so you can come up with a solution that both of you have created together, rather than holding on to your perspective or your point of view. No, I think the child needs to be disciplined in this way. No, I think this is the right way to discipline. Okay? But by just opening up and listening to connect, you will come to an agreement where both the partners feel maybe this is how we should discipline the child. All right? So double clicking is a good way of opening up and trying to get a viewpoint of the other person's on the same getting to understand the viewpoint of a word or a subject that you would like expanded on. All right. And then we have sustaining conversational agility. So mastering our conversations so that we are able to identify at any given point, what level are we at? Because the more we are aware about the level we are at, the more we are aware about what our behavior is and about what we are doing with other people or what effect we are having on us. Is it the cortisol that's being released in our brain? Is it the oxytocin that's being released in our brain? The more we are aware about the kind of conversations we are having on a day-to-day basis, we become more, we master our conversations, and we become more agile. And so these are some of the essentials that conversational intelligence require for us to have greater teams, greater leaders, and greater outcomes. Okay? So as Judith Glaser said, everything happens through conversations. So thank you. That's the introduction. That's just the introduction of conversational intelligence. Like I said, it's a whole framework of tools, rituals, practices. There's so many things that can be done with conversational intelligence, and this was just an introduction. We just touched on the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is beautiful. Good. So I was just looking forward to hearing a bit of the rituals. Yeah.
The rituals.
But I see time is also yes. Just a bit of the rituals. What are some of these rituals?
So some of the essentials, for example, some of the essentials would form your daily rituals.
Mm-hmm.
The rituals that
yeah, so somebody, Faith Kadhambi, this is a lady we schooled with, is saying very eye opening, can't wait for part 2. Meaning she's already expecting. Dr.
Yeah,
Edison,
but you can imagine, I mean, all of you have gone through conversations where you come out feeling very bad, or all of you have come out from conversations and situations where you have such a nice feel in you. And just knowing what's happening in your brain at that time, the self-awareness is very important, because you can come out very feeling very bad about a situation, but being just aware that the other person doesn't have the conversational intelligence in them. So sometimes just understanding that, you feel less bad. You feel less bad about it, and you say, let me see if I can maybe in my conversations double click so I can try and see what their perspective is. Or trust is another thing that is a whole new trust plays a whole new role in conversational intelligence. And if you're able to build trust, all right, then your levels of conversations and the kind of creativity and discovery that you can do in your interactions or in your groups that you have built the trust, it's amazing. It's phenomenal. Judith Glaser she's passed on now, but in her lifetime, she has done some amazing work with some multinational corporates. And she has transformed organizations and groups into unbelievable levels of performance and results. So bringing this into your workplace can transform the entire culture. It's about a culture, really. It's about doing this on a day-to-day regular basis. It's not about just, one conversation, but it's about the whole culture where you work or the relationship that you have. It's engaging in such essentials that you transform the whole culture of that interaction.
Thank you. Dr. Eda is asking, could this be the solution to the divorces we see around?
Conversational intelligence, when you think about it, think about what's happening to our children today, to our teenage children, first of all. There's hardly any conversations that's happening, and you'll find that with all these devices and with these gadgets, they're totally on their gadgets all day long, and that one-to-one touch is being lost. And what happens is that when children go into stress modes or into depression, you're seeing the mental state of young adults today. But that's one thing. But yes, the divorce cases, if we were able to apply conversational intelligence in our conversations, so that we're able to actually find out what is it that is going wrong. And if it's not too late, if it is applied early enough, so that the parties are able to, they're able to have that conversation and make up or understand what is it that they are unhappy about. Absolutely, this can help in divorce cases as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Perhaps the last one, then we go to vote of thanks, is that one comes from Milka Mushai. Is lack of trust in a company enough reason for one to resign? I'm not sure if that's related to this, but maybe yes, because of that word trust. Is lack of trust enough reason for one to resign? I think people build relationships out of trust. So if you stop trusting your organization, to resign or not to resign depends on what motivates you there.
Yes.
And whether you feel it's safer to
whether you feel it's safe.
Yes. Thank you very much. At this moment, I'd like to invite Dr. Melvin Lima to give a vote of thanks on our behalf.